If I ask 20,000 people in an audience, how many of you want to be financially independent? Every hand goes up, but only 1% or less actually obtain it. So 99% of the people fantasize about being financially independent, but they don't have the values that will lead them there. Their values are about spending on consumables and depreciables and going beyond their means, instead of actually buying assets that grow in value, that work, so their passive investment income can exceed their active income to achieve financial independence.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of WealthTalk. My name is Christian Rodwell and I am the Membership Director for WealthBuilders. Now, I'm sure that as an avid listener to various podcasts and having read, I suspect, many books about personal development and success, you'll have heard the term mindset come up more than once. Now, I believe there's a good reason for that. However, what does mindset actually mean? Well, a mindset is an established set of attitudes, beliefs, and assumptions that shape how we perceive the world and approach challenges. Now, I guess in simple terms, when we hit challenges, which of course we all do, we have the choice to react to that in different ways. And if we have been working on developing a strong and positive mindset through good habits and good education and really understanding what makes us tick, then we can overcome those challenges more easily and make better, more informed decisions to help us succeed and live a more fulfilling life. And today, I've reached back far into the archives to bring you an interview with Dr. John Demartini, which I had the pleasure of recording for my own Escape the Rat Race radio show some while ago. But it's a good one, and I wanted to share it today with you. So Dr. Demartini is considered one of the world's leading authorities on human behavior and personal development, and he's also the author of 40 self-development books and manuscripts, such as the acclaimed Breakthrough Experience, which has been translated into over 29 languages, and The Values Factor. And I can tell you a big part of it is linked to the priority that you put towards certain values. Now, we develop a habit and a character around what we value most. And when we live according to our values, we achieve much greater things. But the challenge that we all face is that we often allow other people's values to influence us, which leads to procrastination, lack of discipline, and not achieving all of the things which we'd like to. So how can we take this theory and actually implement it into our day-to-day lives? Well, you're about to find out. Hope you enjoy this one. Dr. Demartini, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought it would be such a great opportunity to invite you onto the radio show and share some of your 44 years experience of studying human behavior, if I'm correct, and a number of best-selling books along that time as well. And of course, your methodologies, which are the Demartini method and the value determination process, which you must have helped many, many thousands of people with now.
Yes, I have been blessed by that. I have been involved in education this is going on my 45th year, so I've been blessed to get to share it with quite a number of people around the world.
Fascinated to find out really where your curiosity with this subject originated from.
Well, I had learning problems as a child, and I ended up dropping out of school, and I was a street kid, and I nearly died when I was 17. In a recovery process from that, I was led to a class by an elderly gentleman who inspired me one night in 1 hour with one message. This one man awakened inside me a yearning to want to overcome my learning problems. And so I, that night, had a dream to somehow learn how to read, because I didn't read till I was 18. I had a desire to read and overcome my learning problems and learn and then share what I learned with people. And I started teaching at age 18. I'm 62 now, going on 63. And I never stopped. And it started out in a small environment where one student, and it kept growing until we have now millions of students. So I've been blessed. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to continue to travel the world, research and teach.
And I remember you sharing when you were in London that you may have published 9 books. You've probably written a fair number more than that, and certainly read a lot more than that.
Yes, I've been blessed to read over 30,000 books and write probably between 300 and 400 books now.
That's incredible. And is there a process that you use to read those books, such as speed reading?
Yeah, I developed my own methodologies over time, slowly but surely. You know, there was times when I used to read. Now my schedule is quite intense speaking, but I used to read literally 18 to 20 hours a day. I read a lot of books doing that. I live to learn, and I love to share. So I'd learn it and then I'd share it. So that's what I continue to do today. Although my teaching and interviewing. I do between 300 and 350 speeches a year and about 1,000 interviews a year. So I have a lot more teaching than I do research, but I still research and I have a team of researchers that help me. So I've got many people around the world helping me in different fields.
So is it fair to say, Dr. Demartini, that ultimately you strive to help people really live congruently, to understand their values and help them to achieve success in their life and understand and define really what success means to every individual?
Yes, you said it perfectly. Some people are dedicated to spiritual quests. Some people are dedicated to intellectual pursuits. Some people are dedicated to business achievements. Some are interested in financial freedom. Some are interested in building a family, a lovely family that serves the world. Others are interested in social, political pursuits. And some are into physical fitness and health and achievements with physical stamina. Whatever area that you want to target or multiple areas you want to target, there are principles and methods that a person can do to enhance and empower each area. And I say that any area of your life you don't empower, other people will probably overpower. You know, there's a wisdom in empowering as many areas as possible. I've set out to master my life, if that's the term, by empowering all of them. I wanted to awaken my own genius. I wanted to create an international global business. I wanted to have financial independence. I wanted to have a global family dynamic, a social influence, a physical stamina, and I want to be inspired by a mission. And I have achieved that, and I'm very grateful for that. And I love helping other people do the same, if that's what they choose.
I think it's fair to say, if you look at many things in our lives, that you can apply the Pareto's law, the 80-20, especially with seminars and learning courses. It's very unfortunate that many people who attend these programs and feel very motivated when they're there and in the moment, actually 80% of people don't take action and don't achieve what it is that they aspire to. So I guess my question would be, what holds people back from achieving great things in life that they aspire to?
Every individual lives by a set of priorities, a set of values, those things that are most important to least important in their life. And this hierarchy of values dictates how they perceive the world, make decisions in the world, and act upon the world. And whenever they're setting goals that are aligned and congruent with what they value most, the thing that's most important to them, they're spontaneously inspired from within to achieve it. It's an intrinsic value, and they don't need to be motivated or incentivized or rhetorically persuaded to do something. They just do it from within. Some people call it the calling, but finding out what you value most is one of the key elements of great achievement. Because when you do, you're in the flow. You're automatically love getting up in the morning and doing that. You know, a young boy who's 12 years old and loves video games doesn't need to be reminded to do his video games. He spontaneously gets up and does his video game. Well, each of us have one of those highest values like he does. And finding out what that is and finding a way where that can be of service to humanity so it can earn an income, so that income can allow them to delegate lower priority things off to others so they can do that 20% that gives you 80% results. They can go out and do the highest priority things. They will increase their achievement level and expand their space and time horizons and wake up natural born leadership. Go through and awaken up their executive center where they have an inspired vision and they have strategically planned with foresight and they execute the plans and they have self-mastery and governance and they don't let the amygdala, the lower animal brain inside, run their life with impulses and instincts and immediate gratifications, which sidetrack them from their greatness. So I'm a firm believer in identifying what's truly valuable to them, prioritizing their day. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it fills up with low priority distractions that don't. If you don't fill your day with high priority inspired challenges that inspire you, it fills up with challenges that don't. Prioritization and concentration and focus on whatever is really most important to you is one of the keys of achieving greatness and expanding your game. And so I help people find out what that is with my value determination process. I help people find out what that is and structure their life and orchestrate their life as a master, planning out how they're going to do with foresight the things that they love before they get filled with things they don't.
And the values determination process is a fantastic tool. Actually, I've started even directing many of my clients towards that as well. And it's interesting the results that come out. And actually had a question from one of our members, Martina, who asked me to ask you, how can we change our values? And when I said to her, why would you want to change your values? Her response was that in order to succeed in business, for example, when her highest value is family, can you achieve success that way? Or do you need to change your values?
if you set a goal that is aligned and congruent with your values, you can have fulfillment. But there's only way to have one fulfillment, either set goals that match your highest values or change your values to match goals you say you want. But most people fantasize about what they want instead of actually get grounded and real about what they're committed to. If I ask 10,000 or 20,000 people in an audience like I might have and say, how many of you want to be financially independent? Every hand goes up, but only 1% or less actually obtain it. So 99% of the people fantasize about being financially independent, but they don't have the values that will lead them there. Their values are about spending on consumables and depreciables and living the lifestyles of the rich and famous and going beyond their means instead of actually buying assets that grow in value, that work, so their passive investment income can exceed their active income to achieve financial independence. So unless a person has a higher value on buying assets than liabilities and buying things that put money in their pocket instead of taking money out of their pocket, they're going to struggle financially and live in a fantasy and beat themselves up thinking something's wrong, when in fact they just don't have the values that will build wealth. So if that's the case, they do have a choice to change their values so they increase the probability of having financial empowerment. So I tell people if they want to have financial empowerment, it's a little unrealistic unless they have a work ethic that they desire to serve vast numbers of people. They desire to build a business that does that. They desire to manage the business effectively and efficiently to maximize profit. They desire to save an ever progressive portion of the profits. They desire to invest in ever greater degrees of leverage with those profits. Desire to accumulate a fortune, and desire to have a creative cause, a financial cause that leaves a legacy to drive them to push themselves to get greater incomes. Unless they have those 6 things in their values, they're probably not going to have enough of a value to actually save and invest and build wealth. You do have the power to change values. The way you do it is by stacking up advantages and benefits and reasons for doing a particular thing, which is an action step that will give you a result financially. I take those 6 steps I just mentioned and stack up hundreds and hundreds of benefits of doing that and do it enough where your decisions are now taking those actions. You make a decision based on whatever you think will give you the greatest advantage over disadvantage at any moment in time. If you believe there's more advantage on building a business that serves people and saving money from it and building wealth, more so than buying consumables and depreciables and living the lifestyles beyond your means, you'll then build wealth. So you can stack up the benefits of doing the actions that lead to wealth, or you can sit there and change your goals to match what your current values are and realize that you're not going to be financially independent. You're just going to live a nice lifestyle and then struggle probably as you get into age in the 70s and 80s.
One of the titles that you've written was titled How to Make One Hell of a Profit and Still Get to Heaven. Could you elaborate a little bit on that book for us, please?
Yeah, I was walking down Madison Avenue in New York many years ago, and that title popped in my head, because I noticed that a lot of people struggle with the ability to receive money. They have this internal guilt process about receiving and thinking somehow if I have money, that's not spiritual or something. And this is basically brainwashed into us by religious ideologies that are really delusions. I'd rather say that if you're doing a service for somebody and it's fairly exchanged, you have a tendency to want to continue doing service with people. So fair exchange is where it's at. We're not here to give away things altruistically. We're here to be in fair exchange and serve people. And so I was trying to get that across in the book, that because there were so many people that had internal conflict about making money. At one time, I've consulted with thousands of people, and I see this commonly, and there's absolutely no reason for it. True mastery of spiritual quest is serving people and also being rewarded. A business has 2 purposes: 1, to serve vast numbers of people, and 2, to have vast rewards. And there's no limits on either one of them, and you deserve to have both. You deserve to have an altruistic and a narcissistic side to yourself, and make sure there's a fair, equitable exchange. That's what's sustainable, and that builds economies, and that builds lives. So the book is about how to transcend any internal conflict or any internal guilt that's stopping you from being willing and capable and deservable of having money. It has helped a lot of people because people don't even realize that they're doing that.
In your breakthrough experience, just how quickly can people change their lives around and literally just flip from one negative mindset to walking out, after a few hours or a couple of days and actually just completely seeing the world with a new set of eyes?
Well, I've seen different people do different things over different times. Without a question, I've seen people change in one weekend. I mean, my life changed in 1 hour. I was a street kid, and 1 hour later, I had a dream to be an educator, and my life had trajectory change. So I've seen people's lives change in a weekend. I've seen thousands of people's lives change in a weekend. But I've seen also people have internal conflicts because they learn something and then they've got to process and work through a lot of other issues in their life. And it's unrealistic sometimes for people to expect, if they've got an assortment of issues, to clear one of them and not have to run up against the wall of the other ones. So it depends on, I've had people that come to the breakthrough experience and change their life in one weekend. Absolutely. I've had other people that come 3 or 4 or 5 times and then work through all the issues and then change their life. It all depends on what they're bringing to the table. And I don't know until I see them at the program what is involved. I mean, I've had people that have had all kinds of challenges that they've built up in stories in their life that has to be disassembled and reconstructed in their head for them to allow themselves to go forward. And some people have internal conflicts because they're subordinating to other authorities and they have what they want and what they think they should have and do is in conflict. So I have to help them transcend the authorities on the outside and give themselves permission to live by the voice and the vision on the inside. And so there's many different components, and there's a whole spectrum, a whole bandwidth, you might say, of people's responses to the breakthrough experience. But I'm absolutely certain that people can change their life. I've seen it in one weekend.
You've touched on a couple of points there. Not only is it the outside influences, but the inner voice. Is one better or worse than the other? Do you have to really be able to master both?
Well, the inner voice is when you live congruently with your highest values, your voice and vision on the inside becomes louder and more profound than people's opinions on the outside. But when you're subordinating to outer authorities constantly and minimizing yourself, and you're too humble to admit what you see in the people around you within yourself, you'll play small. And then you'll have an internal conflict with all the injected values of others clouding the clarity of what you want to dedicate your life to. And then you'll lie to yourself saying, I don't know what I'm committed to. And you'll say, I don't know what my purpose and focus is. In the breakthrough experience, I show them how to dissolve that and how to transcend the authorities on the outside. So they give themselves permission to go and shine, not shrink. Because we're not here to live in the shadows of anyone. We're here to stand on the shoulders of giants. That's our real nature. So we have that capacity, and I show people how to awaken it in the breakthrough experience. And it's very rewarding. It's inspiring to watch lives change. I mean, you're in the business too, and you can see that when you get people's lives change, it's one of the most fulfilling things you can do in life.
Most definitely. And I loved in London, where you talked about teleology, the study of meaning and purpose and the origin of that word. And it made me think of Napoleon Hill with having your burning desire and your chief aim in life. And just how important is it for someone to really think about their life and almost start with the end in mind and then reverse engineer that to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of achieving that?
You said it perfectly. I couldn't articulate it better. There are some scientists, atheistic and mechanistic scientists, that believe teleology is a thing of the past. What they've done is in Terence Deacon's Incomplete Nature text, he addresses this in the first couple chapters and how science has tried to rape and pillage out teleology. But the real truth is that there were people that do have meaning and purpose in their life, absolutely have a great more fulfillment and go accomplish more things than people that are just empty. So I'm a firm believer that that's a key component in our nature. And I'm a firm believer that it's essential to have something that you want to dedicate your life to that has some outcome and meaning to you. Viktor Frankl demonstrated in the concentration camps when he wrote In Search of Meaning. We have the power to do something extraordinary when we have a big enough reason for doing it. And the why, the cause, the purpose, whatever you want to call it, that teleological outcome is an essential component of mastery. And so I have fun in debating that with some people that want to sit there and kind of live in a purely mechanistic model. But I think that there's a wisdom of accessing what your highest value is and living congruently with it. I've seen repeatedly people do extraordinary things when they're doing that. I've seen that in people who are high achievers have that fulfilled. There's too much evidence to ignore teleology.
And what part do human relationships play in this? So whether it be sexual relationship, partnerships, family, having a void of any of those areas, can that hinder? What are the effects of the relationships with others when you're following your highest purpose?
Well, it's all perception. It's not how our life is, it's the perception of it. There's been a debate about whether the environment controls your life or whether you control your life. And I think it's, both can have an effect, but it's not really the environment as much as your perception of the environment. I've had people that have had outrageous beginnings. And they used and turned every one of those into great opportunities and then excelled. And for maybe 20 or 30 years of their life, they ran stories of why they were a victim of their history. Then they shifted the story by a different perception and they became master of their destiny. And so it's all about the perception. I teach people how to change whatever's happened to them to give them an advantage and use it to their greatness. I had a young boy that came to me, and he was programmed by some counselor or whatever that said, well, you have, dyslexia, and you come from a disadvantaged family because your father died when you were born and your mother abandoned you and all this and that. And I took this kid and I said, all right, let's go look up on Google how many of the famous people were orphans. And there were 700 famous people that started out almost identical to him. I said, and you're in this category. Tycho Brahe and Sir Isaac Newton. I mean, you're in that category. This is the perfect thing that you've had. And because he saw that, his life changed. He went and excelled. And he'd been running that story for years. And all of a sudden, he saw it to his advantage. I've seen this over and over again. It's all about perception. We have control over our perceptions, decisions, and actions. Change our perception, change our decision, change our action, our life changes. We have control over those. And it doesn't matter what's going on the outside. What matters is how we perceive it, decide to do something with it, and act.
As you say, there's so many examples out there to inspire those who really are just maybe making excuses. Another question for you is the topic of habits and discipline. How long, in your experience, does it take to establish a good new habit, and in reverse, to get rid of bad habits? And do you have some processes or advice for anyone listening relating to that?
Well, I don't ever label things good or bad. I don't find moral injunctions like that to be useful. I find that you automatically develop a habit and a character around what you value most. And anytime you expect yourself to live according to your highest values, you'll live up to it. And you'll develop the habit and you'll spontaneously do the action. But anytime you expect yourself to do something that's not high in your value, which a lot of people do because they've injected the values of others, they'll try to do something, then they'll keep not doing it. They'll keep procrastinating because they keep focusing on what is truly higher on their value list. And then they'll think that they've got a bad habit, or they think they can't be disciplined. And then they'll label themselves. You're automatically disciplined in whatever allows you to fulfill what's highest on your value. And you may come up with a strategy that you will think is a bad habit, but it's a temporary strategy to help you get what you want until you come up with a more alternative strategy. So I don't label them good or bad. I just see them as strategies, and they're unconsciously motivated sometimes, and helping people find out what the drive is and what alternative ways of getting the same outcome, and then showing them those and stacking those in favor in their highest values more effectively than the one that they're using. They'll shift their behavior quickly. So you can change your behavior really quickly if you stack up enough reasons for doing it, enough benefits for doing it, and link it to what is highest on their value. But a lot of people have behaviors that they are wanting to get rid of because they're expecting themselves to live outside what they value. I see this all the time. I had a lady the other day that was basically, I was doing a filming for a weight loss project. She said, I've got to stop overeating. I'm just killing myself. I'm overweight. I'm just eating. I'm eating. And I asked her, okay, you would never do that unless you had a motive for doing it. Anything you do is going to give you more advantage and disadvantage. So you obviously think there's more advantage and disadvantage out of eating. She said, no, it's killing me. I said, I know what, I hear you say that, but you're deep inside obviously have a motive for eating. So what's the benefit you're getting out of eating? And she looked at me and she said, there's no benefits out of it. Look at me, I'm overweight. I said, what's the benefit you're getting? And I held her accountable to answer that question. And all of a sudden she says, everybody in my family is obese. And if I don't eat and be large like them, I don't feel like I'm loved by my family. The second one, she said, my sister's bigger than me and she used to push me around. And if I'm not bigger than my sister, no matter what her size is, I could be pushed around. And I swore I'm not going to let her push me around again. The third one was, and this is the big one that brought big tears. She says, I went on a crash diet. I lost a bunch of weight and started to have a little bit of a figure because she was a big girl. And she said, the guy hit on me. He showed affection towards me. And I thought he loved me, but really he just wanted me for sex. And so I gave in and we had sex the first night we ever dated. Then he disappeared, never saw him again. I found out 7 weeks later I was pregnant. And then I was confronted as a Catholic with the idea of keeping a child that I didn't want or an abortion, both of which were terrorizing me. And so I swore to myself I would never, ever lose weight again to get caught in a situation that was so painful. She had unconscious motives doing what she was doing. And even though she was saying she wanted to stop eating, unconsciously, she had more advantage by eating than disadvantage in her mind. So helping people find out what that motive is and bringing unconscious motives conscious is really important for people that say they want to change something. These are habits that have a motive. And sometimes they're not conscious motives, they're unconscious motives.
Would you mind telling us about the ABCs of negativity?
Yeah, anytime you set a goal that is not aligned with your own values, or you expect somebody else to live not in their highest values, or you're expecting a one-sided world, you're going to have what is called the ABCDs of negativity, which is internal anger and aggression, internal blame and betrayal, feelings of betrayal, internal criticism and challenge, internal despair and depression, the desire to exit and escape, the desire to be frustrated and frightened, and the desire to be grouchy and have grief. These ABCDFGs of negativity, anytime you expect yourself to live outside your own values, you'll have them. Anytime you expect somebody else to live outside their values, you'll project them onto other people. So we have those as feedback mechanisms to let us know we have unrealistic expectations on ourselves or other people.
People talk about your inner genius, and I'm guessing that there's going to be a link here to values. And we sometimes talk of your inner genius, it's your personality type, and that your personality type doesn't really change throughout your lifetime. So you'll see people who are naturally creative come up with ideas very easily, and there are others who go out and just connect and love being around people. Others who are better at service and timing, and then maybe others who are focused more on the details and the numbers and strategy. So how does that link with values, and how would you suggest someone discovers their genius and actually knows when they have discovered their genius and that they should follow their flow in that area?
I don't like to put labels on people because I have every one of those traits at different moments and different times and different settings. There's times when I'm outgoing and extroverted, and other times I'm more introverted, and sometimes I'm detailed, and sometimes I'm big visionary. I have all those components at different settings. I'll give you a story to start this. About 7 years ago, I was doing a program on comparative sciences, religions, and philosophies of the world. It's a 10-day program I do called the Imperial Series. During a lunch break, I went out to meet with my girlfriend, who is sort of a socialite and knows a lot of people in the city, a lot of wealthy people, in fact. She was having a social luncheon with these people, and they were talking about social gossip going on, what's going on in the city. Now, I'm not in the city of Houston that often, even though I'm born here. I visit there just about 4 times a year. And they were talking about social events and people there that I didn't know anything about. So I sat there at that lunch and didn't say a word. As hard as that may sound, I didn't say a word. I just sat there and listened and was very introverted. And the ladies that she introduced me to never met me before. And when I left to go back to the seminar, they said, well, your boyfriend seems so quiet. He's sort of introverted. He doesn't seem like he's outgoing. He doesn't seem very assertive or aggressive. You know, is he any good in bed? And that's what they said to her. And she laughed. She says, this guy, you have no idea. You just get it. You got him out of context. You put him in front of human behavior in front of 10,000 people, and you'll see this guy a different person. But you put him in a social setting where he's talking about things that doesn't mean anything to him, and he'll quiet. So you got to watch out for labels. Sometimes the psychographics of people and psychometrics of people can be misleading. When people are living congruently with their highest values, they become more outgoing because they're more confident. When they're living in things that are low in their values, they're more introverted. I'm very low in technology. I delegate all technology to other people. I just don't deal with it. I mean, I don't even carry around a cell phone. I delegate everything because I don't want to be distracted from my research. So if I was to go to a conference in Las Vegas on technology, I would be a learned, disabled, attention deficit, quiet, introverted kind of guy. But if I'm sitting at a human behavioral conference, I'd probably be the center of attention. So in that setting, I'm a different personality. So anytime you're setting goals that are congruent to align with your highest values, you'll tend to excel. Just like a 12-year-old who loves his video games, he will automatically conquer the video game and then want to pursue greater video games and go to the more advanced, challenging video game. And whenever you're challenged, that's when you wake up innovation, creativity, and genius. So in your highest value, when you're setting goals that are aligned with that and living congruently with that, you spontaneously wake up your genius capacities. And what that is depends on the individual. Some people wake up their genius capacities raising kids because that's their highest value. Some do it for social causes. Some do it in sports. Some do it in different fields. So the hierarchy of their values is dictating where their genius is going to be awakened. And setting goals that are congruent with highest values is one of the keys of waking genius.
If some of our listeners maybe are currently in a 9-to-5 job and they're not enjoying it, they hate their boss, they're stressed, they don't feel fulfilled, there's something that they would like to do. So they have an interest, a specific passion, but they make excuses. They say, oh, it's so risky to start a business, and I've got the security of the job and the monthly paycheck, and if I leave, I've got to look after the mortgage, the family, all of these kind of excuses. What would your advice be to someone in this position, where they're kind of balancing, do I stay in this sort of safety for the rest of my life, or do I take the so-called risk of following what they're passionate about?
Unless you get really clear about what you're going to do that's an alternative, that's going to produce a reasonable income that exceeds the current income at the job that you have, you're not going to move. The probability is very low because you're not going to make a decision unless you think there's going to be more advantages and disadvantages. And if your highest value is security, you're probably not going to go out and be an entrepreneur and take a risk. So what I first do is I start them on a journey of identifying what it is that they say they would prefer to do and make sure they do a business plan to work out the kinks and make sure it's a viable system that serves people, that has a viable way of making an income. I encourage them to consider spending extra hours out of the day doing so they work on a plan and have a business plan that's real and viable. If they work on the plan, the purpose of setting a strategic plan together is to mitigate the risks so you're not anxious about that change in job. Then I would go to the job description you currently are in, and I would make a list of all the things you're doing and then ask how specifically is doing these actions going to help me in my new career path, and be appreciative of the temporary job you have as a stepping stone to where you want to go. If you can see it on the way, not in the way, you're not devitalized by it, but you're vitalized on it transiently until you make your jump. But don't make a jump foolishly, make a jump strategically by making sure that you've spent the extra hours building the other business up to cover the security. And once you make the income from the new business, you can say goodbye to the old business or convert the old business into one of your clients. But don't expect to jump without a plan. That's foolish. You won't do it. And appreciate what you do. Every job you have is teaching you something you need on the next step. So see the job you have as a temporary job that's teaching you what you need to go to the next step, and appreciate it. Because otherwise you're weighing yourself down and you'll drain yourself every day going to work. See it on the way, not in the way. See how it's helping you get to the next step, and put in the extra hours to go and build the new career path. Just know that if you don't do that, you'll end up breaking your body down. You'll end up blowing your money on vacations and escape things. Because anytime you're not having meaning and engaged at work, you're uninspired, in other words, anytime you do, you'll automatically go blow your money on immediate gratifying things and consumables that live vicariously through other people's brands instead of build your own brand. And you'll end up blowing your money instead of using your money wisely to go and build something that's next, that's more inspiring for you. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, it's going to keep filling up with low priority distractions that don't.
And often someone in that position maybe thinks that the grass is greener on the other side in terms of entrepreneurship, starting their own business, when actually it may not be. And it may just be that their current surroundings, that job is not the right one for them. So it's wise to really be clear about that fact, I think.
Well, the thing is the business plan, the purpose of doing a strategic planning in a business is to mitigate risk, to destroy fantasies that you have that are making you not appreciate the job you have. Because sometimes you're comparing your current job to a fantasy that you think is going to be best benefit. But once you go and do the plan, you get to find out all that's involved. And you may find out that thing you wanted to go after isn't really important to you. And then you'll break that fantasy so you can appreciate your job. Or if you discover that you have skills in the job you have, and you think that there's another opportunity at another company that's going to allow you to excel in those skills, then investigate the other company. I always say that unless you have a backup plan, you're not in a negotiation table. You can't negotiate until you have a backup. Go and look at other jobs. If you find one that's more viable, leverage that to your advantage and possibly go and take another job position. But sitting there bitching and griping about your life and that you're unfulfilled is a waste of energy. Wise thing to do is get into action.
I agree. And often actually looking at increased ways to deliver value in your current position that actually might change circumstances and may result in a pay increase or a promotion and actually solve the current problem, so to speak.
I have a series of steps, an 8-step process on how to get a raise. And I tell people, don't ever go and ask for a raise unless you have truly added more value to the company. They have to make more profit for you to get more money. So if you can go to a company and you can look at that company and find out a niche that you actually do love doing. I've helped a lot of people go into a company and position themselves differently in the company to get the job that they wanted by offering more services and working extra hours and showing and educating themselves towards that position. But if you can show that you've made progress and learned and are more skilled and more capable, and you can document what you've contributed economically to the company, and you know what the margins of the company are, and you can exceed those margins, then you can deserve to go and ask for a raise. So yes, that could be another factor. But I take people who have job descriptions that they're uninspired by and ask them how doing this activity can help them fulfill what's meaningful to their lives. Sometimes that's all it takes to appreciate the job you have. You got all those options. You can appreciate the job you have. You can try to transform the job that you're in and take on different positions and target the things you love doing and excel at it. Go out and start your own business. You can turn this job into one of your clients in a new business, or you can probably go out and find another job that's more in line with you. All the above, you want to give yourself permission to at least explore. But beware of outside fantasies that make you not appreciate your realities. Because I always say that depression is a comparison of your current reality to a fantasy you keep holding on to. Make sure that you mitigate the fantasies by getting a business plan together to make sure that what you're going after is real.
And obviously with our community members, we do help them launch their businesses and get really clear about their definitive purpose. However, the statistics, certainly in the UK, I imagine similar in America, are that 9 out of 10 new businesses don't make it. Why do you think that is?
Well, what they do is they often project their fantasies of what the market needs onto the market instead of finding out what the real market wants. And anytime you're not meeting market needs, you have a lot of uphill push trying to market something that people don't want. So you want to make sure that you go out and find out what the needs are. You also want to find out where it overlaps what you're inspired by. And when you find what you're inspired to deliver and what the people want, you find a niche. And that's the first step. And many people have these fantasy ideas. I see it all the time. People have these fantasy ideas about what the world needs instead of actually finding out what the world's searching for. If you find out what the world's searching for and you can provide something more effectively and efficiently than somebody else, you've got a niche. But you have to do your due diligence and not just jump out there undercapitalized with fantasies. If you go out there and make sure that you are doing something that really serves people, you'll have a source of income. And then you can leverage that into ever greater degrees of growth and scale it up.
So I'd like to come back to some of the questions that we've had from our members. And next one is from Stephen Hall. And I think we've touched on many of these points, but I'd like to ask this question on behalf of Stephen anyway. He says that you talk a lot about setting priorities and goals and figuring out your values, very top down. So thinking of your highest value first, Steve would be really interested to know what you think of the kind of getting things done type approach that are very bottom up. So all the things that are on your mind that are cluttering up in order to make space for considering the bigger picture. Because for Steve personally, for a long time, he really focused on the bigger picture, but he just became too stressed by the long list of everyday things that he wasn't doing or forgetting or procrastinating on. He was just wondering, what your thoughts would be with that.
The basic mastery of this is very simple. If you don't fill your day with high priority actions that inspire you, that build the momentum, your life's going to fill up with distractions constantly. So you have to prioritize things and look at what's going to give you the greatest results for the day. What's going to give you the greatest fulfillment, the greatest outcome, greatest productivity, greatest income that you can do, and prioritize it. If you sit there and major in minors and minor in majors all day, you're going to end up not feeling fulfilled and you're not going to get ahead. You have to delegate. You can't have an inspired life without delegation. And if you're sitting there doing all the micro jobs and something that's basically devaluing you, you're not going to get ahead. When I was in practice many years ago, I made a list of everything that I was doing in a day, everything, down to the detail, all the action steps. Then I put out to the right of it in column 2, how much did it produce per hour? And that was eye-opening because I found out that a lot of the stuff I was doing wasn't producing any income, was not productive whatsoever, and I was just trapped doing it because I thought I had to do it. The third one was how much meaning does it have? Because sometimes I'll sacrifice something that produces for something that's extremely meaningful. The next one is how much does it cost to replace somebody to do it? If I was to delegate it, how much would it cost per hour for somebody to get it done? So I could get it off my hands and they were experts and I could just let it go. And the last one is how much time spent. When I did those 5 columns, it was eye-opening because I realized that I was majoring in minors and minoring in majors. And I then asked, what is the most meaningful things I can do and the most productive things I can do? And I prioritized them. And then I made a goal over the next 2 or 3 years to get people in place to delegate everything else off my plate. Today, I research, write, travel, teach. That's it. I don't do anything else. I haven't cooked since I was 24 years old. I haven't driven a car since I was 26 and a half years ago. I don't do things that are not inspiring to me. It's that simple. I let it go. I delegated them away. And you're not going to live an inspired life as long as you're doing micro bullshit and you're sitting there weighing yourself down with stuff that devalues you compared to what you're capable of producing. It's got to have meaning. It's got to have productivity if you want to have a fulfillment life. So, yeah, if you're going to sit there and get all those things done and major and minor stuff, you're going to keep devaluing yourself and feeling, maybe you'll feel a little taken ease off, but you're much wiser to delegate. And that forces you to have to go out and serve people and make an income to cover the cost. So if you're not serving people and making an income, you can't delegate. You're trapped. And then you come up with excuses why you can't do it. And it sounds like that's what he's done. So I'd advise you to prioritize what you're doing, delegate as much as you can, and get out there and serve more people with more income to pay for the delegations. You'll feel more light, you'll feel more professional, you'll end up with more income, you'll help the economy. There's many different benefits to that in society.
I think you've just answered the remaining question from Nick Hawkes as well, which was around the to-do list that just seems to get longer and longer week after week. Again, that comes down to obviously things that aren't getting done each day are simply not high up on your values list, would you say?
I found out when I was in practice years ago, I could do exams, I could do clinical office visits, I could do radiographs, I could do blood work, I could do urinalysis, I could do all this stuff in the clinical setting. And then I realized I put the dollar value next to it, and I realized, okay, reports are $400 an hour, exams are $750 an hour, adjusting and helping people in office visits is about $1,200 to $1,500 an hour. But going out and speaking and generating patients, I could make $10,000 to $15,000 or more an hour. And I realized that going out and speaking was much more effective in growing the practice. So I ended up hiring 5 doctors to do the clinical, and then I specialized in the highest priority clients and delegated all other clients to these 5 doctors. And my business grew. I made way, way, way more money. I ended up having way more fulfillment. I was more of a leader. I grew a more efficient business. I employed people. I was a leader. It paid off to get clear about what is really priority. And to-do lists are useful if they're priorities. But to-do lists can just pack up on you, and sometimes you feel obligated to do something. If you're not surrounding yourself with people that are capable of doing the things you need to delegate, you're going to trap yourself.
And it's never really been easier, has it, in this day and age with technology the way it is, to find a virtual assistant, even at a very reasonable costs, which you can delegate a lot of this to?
Well, delegation is finding people who are inspired by their own highest values to do the things you need to delegate, so they're fully engaged, so you don't have to micromanage them and push them to do things and distract yourself from doing what you do best. It's hiring A people around you, not lower C, D, and E, and F kind of people. If you hire A people that are greater at what that you need done than you are, you'll free it up and you're out of it. You don't have to think about it. I haven't written a check or looked at the financial matters of my business. It's all been electronically structured by an expert. I don't have to think about it. All I have to do is go and research, write, travel, teach, and serve people. If I do that, the rest of it's taken care of. And I became financially independent because I let go of all that stuff. Why do a $20 to $50 an hour job and I can do a multiple $1,000 an hour job? It's silly.
That leads me on actually to many of our members who are working a 9-to-5 full-time job and starting their own business in the evenings, at weekends, trying to cram everything in, short on time. But there comes that stage where, as you say, you do need to take on additional help. Maybe that's your first employee or outsourcing. How do people know when the time is right? Or would you just say that that should be one of your first priorities is to really just remove some of those tasks away from yourself?
You go and do that exercise. The exercise I gave you is a gold mine. Make a list of everything you do, find out what it produces per hour, honestly, what it can produce, how much meaning, how much does it cost to delegate. That's all the cost, not just salaries, but every cost involved, and how much time is spent. With that information, you can make wise decisions on what it is to delegate first and second, third, etc. And if you can go and produce something that's way more productive, and you can be assured that it's going to produce more income than the cost of delegation, it never costs to properly delegate. It only costs to improperly delegate. When you surround yourself with people that are incompetent and people you think that you're more knowledgeable about, instead of getting people that are more skilled and paying the difference and making sure that you're free to go out and do something that produces more income. If I go out and I'm out networking and I'm generating new business and I make way more money doing that than doing a paper report, then delegate the friggin' paper report off your back and get on with doing something that produces. That's more invigorating and more inspiring to you. Otherwise, you're going to weigh yourself down with uninspiring things that's going to make you burn out. It's liberating yourself through delegation and going out. And some of it can be outsourced and some can be insourced. But whatever it is, you want to delegate it, because if not, you're trapped by doing low priority stuff. Yeah. I can't imagine doing those things that I did 35 years ago. Can't even imagine doing those things again. I haven't done those 35 years. I wouldn't even think about going back to that, because what I do now is way more productive.
I'd like to rewind, and it's probably, how long has it been now since The Secret was released? At least 10 years or so.
It's 11 years now. It's 11 years since it was released.
Yeah, and it was actually, it always fondly reminds me of one of our first entrepreneurial pursuits, because my housemate at the time had like about 500 DVDs in our front room, and he was a reseller in the UK, and fond memories there. The Secret obviously focused on the law of attraction. So would you mind sharing your thoughts on how you believe the law of attraction works and how someone can apply that?
Your innermost dominant thought tends to become your outermost tangible reality, and your highest value determines your innermost dominant thought. My highest value is teaching. You don't have to remind me or motivate me to think about traveling the world and teaching. I do it every day. It's impossible to get out of my mind. It's what I do. So setting goals that are congruent with your highest values automatically make your innermost dominant thought concentrate on something. You're disciplined to do that. You don't even have to think about it. And your highest values, your glial cells in your brain neuroplastically allow you to maximize your brain function with its awareness and its intention. So in other words, you're going to walk in a mall, you're going to spot things that are aligned with your highest value. If you're a mother who's dedicated to children and you're 35 years old and you have 3 children under the age of 5, if you walk in a mall, you're going to see things that relate to children. If you're an entrepreneur and you're 35 and you're building businesses and you got 3 businesses, you're going to see totally different things in the mall. You're going to see entrepreneurial things. So whatever's highest on your value, you're going to spot in your environment. You have in the pulvinar region of the thalamus, you have literally a filtering, gatekeeping mechanism to help you see in your environment things that help you fulfill what's valuable to you, highest. So you will automatically start seeing opportunity, making quick decisions with the data that you're able to get, and act upon it without hesitation in your highest values. And we call that synchronicity. We call that opportunity. And the law of attraction is nothing more than the synchronicities and opportunities that we're able to spot that we can't see if we set goals that are not aligned with our highest values. So many people have fantasies. I want to be financially independent. If they don't have a value on building wealth, they can't see the opportunities and take advantage of the opportunities that are there. So the law of attraction is a byproduct of congruency between intentions and your highest value. That's where it emerges from. So I'd rather be practical than esoteric about it, because sometimes we have this fantasy that I'm just going to visualize things and it's just going to manifest. That's fine. That sometimes synchronously happens, but that's not something you bet money on. I'd rather bet money on something that we know are facts about the human brain, and that if we set goals that are congruent with the highest values, we have the highest probability of achievement, the highest probability of noticing opportunities, making decisions, and acting on them. So to me, I'd want that in my advantage. The law of attraction is a reflection of congruency between your intentions and your highest values.
It's fascinating how everything links back to your values and consistency and discipline as well. I imagine, again, both of those fall into place when you're following your highest value.
The people I know that do it have done excellent and have done exceedingly powerful things are the ones that I find most congruent. They're very clear about what their objective is. I have a friend who's in Australia, is building a city inside a city. It's amazing what he's doing, and he's extremely focused. He's extremely targeted, and he's very clear on his highest values, and he's on a mission to fulfill it. And he's doing extraordinary things, and opportunities and ideas and people and all kinds of things just keep manifesting in his life. And it's purely because of congruency, because 10 years ago, that wasn't there. But once he got clear, and once he got congruent, his executive center saw inspired vision, strategically planned it out, executed the plans, and has self-governance. That's the beauty of the executive center in the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex. That area of the brain awakens and gets blood glucose and oxygen when we're congruent with our highest values. And that is where our highest mastery comes from. He's a perfect example of that. I've seen people in sports that are incredibly focused. I've seen people in business that are incredibly focused, that are congruent. That is the number one thing. That's why I target that and emphasize that every talk I do around the world, because that is the most fundamental principle of human behavior.
When the why is strong enough, the how will take care of itself.
I learned that about 20 years old from an Amway guy. I have to say that that's still accurate today. If you've got a big enough reason for doing it, you'll get it done.
So you've inspired thousands, if not millions of people around the world. I'd love to know, who inspires you, Dr. Demartini?
Oh, that's a good one. I've had many mentors along the journey, but most of them have been the great texts. I've read 30,000 plus texts, and I've stood on the shoulders of a lot of great minds, all the great Greek philosophers, all the way to modern philosophers, the great theologians, the mystics, great business leaders, great financial leaders. I try to put my hand in the pot of glue of the greatest minds and greatest thinkers on the planet that have made the greatest contributions to the planet in every field. Anybody who's a neologist and the founder of a new industry or new discipline, I study the lives of them. They've all been an influence and mentors along the way. And I've done my best to own the traits of whatever I see in them and see where I have those same behaviors, because I believe that nothing's missing in people. And the only reason they're playing small is because they're thinking things are missing in them. So I go through and identify great actions in people and find out where I demonstrate them and awaken them. And I find that that's very productive. But I have hundreds and hundreds of great mentors that have been in my life. But physical mentors, I've had Paul Bragg, I've had Howard Hughes, I've had Jim Parker, I've had many different people along the way, Warren Buffett, lots of people that have assisted me in my journey in each of the areas of life. There's been physical and people that I've read. Both of them have been great mentors.
Do you have a daily discipline? Do you have morning ritual, certain things that you follow every day that keep you on track?
I don't go to bed at night until I've documented all the things that I'm grateful for. I've got the largest collection of gratitudes of anybody I've met. There's thousands and thousands of pages of those gratefuls, because I found out that if I document what I did achieve and what I'm grateful for each night, I go to bed with a more centered place and I wake up with more inspiration the next morning. And then in the morning I get up and I ask, what are the 7 highest priority action steps I can do today that can help me fulfill my mission on earth? Now I've been doing that so long that the same answers keep showing up. So it's research, write, travel, teach. So I do that every day. I research every single day. I write every single day. I travel most days and I teach most every day. Either we're doing interviews or doing live presentations, or somehow I teach, writing articles or something. And those are the things that I love doing, but I do it. I eat really to live. I don't live to eat. So at breakfast, I have fresh fruit and I have yogurt, multigrain toast, or some sort of multigrain. I usually have fish, fowl, or chicken and vegetables at lunch or dinner. I'm a really simple guy. I eat to perform. I don't spend long hours doing long social bullshit. I'm focused on what it is that inspires me, and I get after it. Mm-hmm. I have a simple life, and I have a very intense day. I usually do at least 16 to 18 hours a day, sometimes 20.
Thank you for sharing that. And sometimes we hear of the very successful people, Mark Zuckerberg, an example, he always wears, black t-shirts because he just wants to remove those kind of obsolete decision-making processes that, just don't need to take up his brain space.
At age 23, I got a job at selling suits at Penny's department store. And I was starting into professional school, and I had to get a job, so I went there and did that. And I saw the impact that wearing a suit was. I noticed that people treated me differently. I noticed opportunities were more abundant. And so I realized that. So I have sort of a brand of wearing a nice suit. We also have a Demartini fashion company, because I believe that if you treat yourself and respectfully dress, it will impact the opportunities in your life. It depends on what your career is, but I usually like to dress up. I like quality clothes. I've got an Italian gene in me, and I think that that's my thing. So I rarely do a seminar without my suit. And some people say, you do everything in a suit. Well, I'm either in my birthday suit or my regular suit. I've even rode camels in my suit. I like that, but that's just my thing. That doesn't mean that's an advantage to anybody. It's just my thing. I love a quality outfit that I enjoy wearing. That everybody has their little focus that they do, and that's one of mine.
The point you're making there is to feel comfortable in yourself, comfortable in your own skin, whatever that may be, whether that's dressing up or just being casual.
Well, I found that the way people treated me was different by the way I dressed. So I thought, why would I not use that to my advantage? That's silly. And it's paid off. I was the only person in professional school that wore a professional outfit every single day through school. I figured that if I'm going to be a professional, I might as well start now. And everybody laughed at me when I was in school, but they didn't laugh at me by the time I graduated.
Dr. Demartini, we're coming to the end of our conversation. It's been absolutely a delight speaking with you. I'd love to leave our listeners with one question, which I'll put to you, which is, what would you want your legacy to be?
Well, I'm a firm believer that there's a real magnificence in people that they don't always honor. And I love helping people find the hidden order in their daily chaos and find the inner magnificence to their outer illusions and help them break through whatever limitations they have in their life. And so my legacy is basically the Demartini Prize, which I want to have compete with the Nobel Prize. It's a fund that I put together that will provide income to people that do extraordinary things. And I wanted to compete dollar for dollar for the Nobel Prize. I want my foundation to continue. I want my institute to go on and educate people with my facilitators. And now my daughter's carrying on some of that work. I want my body of work to be left out there that people will use and take advantage of to be able to keep accomplishing and achieving what they want in life. I want to inspire people, and I want to do that after life. I figure that if necessary, if people need to reach me, they can go to a Ouija board and they can communicate with me, and I'll do seminars through Ouija boards.
You've not thought about the virtual reality opportunities that are forthcoming?
Yeah, I had a thing. I wrote a posthumous biography that's a 26-page document of how I want to be perceived 1,000 years from now. And lo and behold, 2009-10, I was asked to speak in Austria at the Melk Abbey with 200 individuals that were leaders in the world. And it was a very inspiring thing. Muhammad Yunus was there, the Dalai Lama was there, and I got to be one of the 12 speakers. At the end of the speech, they took the speakers, 12 speakers, and they took in a stainless steel cylinder, they took their quotations and teachings, wrapped them up and calligraphied them into a stainless steel airtight cylinder, and stuck them in the Infinity of Divinity library shelf to be stored for 1,000 years into their library shelves where they keep ancient scrolls. And that's when I realized that if I have a goal, an immortal goal, I can create an immortal outcome. So many people say they're immortal souls, but very few people write immortal goals. But unless you have goals beyond your life, you probably won't get the most out of your life.
If people would like to reach out, get in touch, I know you obviously speaking, numerous different events. What's the best way for someone to connect and find out more about you?
Well, simply go to drdemartini.com, drdemartini.com. I think you can find me on the internet. I'm all over the internet. So if you go on there and go to the website, it's an educational website. You can look at radio, television, newspapers, magazines, articles, inspired writings, products, YouTube. There's everything there just to educate people. So people can take advantage of that and they can learn about what I'm doing, where I'm at. Not all the programs are on there. It's mainly the public ones. Some private programs are not listed on there, but there's many public programs I do around the world. And there's many webinars that I do, and there's Facebook that you can go to. I'm in the social media. But I would say go to my drdemartini.com. and go and do the value determination process. It's a free online system they can do. They just simply go in there and determine their values. It's worth it. It'll help them change their life. So I would advise them to do that. It's worth doing, I promise.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.